Deadly consequences as members of Islamic Movement of Nigeria clash with police in Abuja. Governor Kagame reaffirms his resolve to keep Ondo State residents safe and secure. In international news, Italian Prime Minister resigns as political crisis deepens. And in sport, Eyimba beat Adamawa United to stay third on the NPFL table.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Members of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria, IMN, also called the Shiites, have once again clashed with the police in Abuja on Tuesday evening with deadly consequences and injuries. The group has been calling for the release of its leader, Ibrahim El-Zakzaki, who has been detained by authorities since 2015. Reuters news agency is reporting at least 3 dead. One of the protesters said he saw 6 dead bodies, but a Reuters reporter said he saw at least 1 corpse, vehicles ablaze, and blood stains along a main street following burst of gunfire. Police say 54 suspects had been arrested and would be taken to court. The Committee to Protect Journalists Africa had tweeted that a reporter had died after being shot at the rally. An IMN spokesman said the police had attacked a peaceful march in the capital city as protesters marched to demand the release of their leader. President of the Media Forum of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria, Ibrahim Musa, told Reuters trouble began when the police blocked the protesters from accessing Abuja roads. The unrest in Abuja's business district lasted for about an hour. Under Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu has reaffirmed his stand that people in the state must be secured and should not continue to live in fear of kidnappings and crimes. He made the reaffirmation when he received the Assistant Inspector General of Police for Zone 17 in Akure and Brigadier General Raymond Usaha, the new Brigade General Commander of the 32 Artillery Owena Cantonment in the state. Akeredolu implored them to collaborate with other security agencies in the state to tackle insecurity. Meanwhile, the Arawa Youth Consultative Forum has described as rubbish the claim by Miyetti Allah Kalka that Fulani herdsmen own all the land in Nigeria. The forum's national president, Yerima Shetima, said nobody but the government owns the lands in the country. Miyetti Allah's leader, Bello Abdullahi Bodejo, has remarked on Sunday that no power can remove Fulani herdsmen from any forest in any state. He was reacting to Governor Akeredolu's 7-day ultimatum that expired on Sunday. Now to other news, a virtual meeting of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, was held earlier this week, during which Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari called for regional cooperation to tackle common challenges. Correspondent Deji Badros has the details.
As expected, security and the COVID-19 pandemic featured prominently in the agenda of the virtual meeting of the regional leaders. The meeting comes at a time when the UN Refugee Agency UNHCR says the number of people fleeing violence in West Africa's Sahel region has hit a record 2 million people. Much of the violence is blamed on jihadist groups like Al-Qaeda, Islamic State and Boko Haram. The Nigerian president, whose speech was read by the country's foreign minister at the meeting, told his fellow heads of state in the region that it was time to step up action.
The increase in the spate of violent attacks by terrorists and other criminal elements across the region is worrisome. It is now more important than ever for the region to work together and combat this menace. The region needs to commence immediate implementation of the ECOWAS Action Plan on the fight against terrorism. We urge member states to pay their voluntary contributions into the fund dedicated to the implementation of the 2020-2024 Action Plan.
Another big challenge that the region faces is the COVID-19 pandemic. The coronavirus is spreading faster across the continent, and some countries in the region like Nigeria are battling a second wave. Mortality and infection rates have also gone up, while the wait for the arrival of COVID-19 vaccines continues.
Now that vaccines are soon to be available, I call on all member states to ensure that we prioritize the acquisition of the vaccines for our citizens, while at the same time increasing efforts to develop our own vaccines so that we can build herd immunity against the COVID-19 pandemic in West Africa. Efforts should also be accelerated for the region to start producing rapid diagnostic test kits of international standards to be made available to all member states. It is important for the region to evolve effective measures and avoid total lockdown at this critical time that our economies are gradually recovering from the first wave of the pandemic.
The economy of the region is already reeling from the effects of the pandemic. This has made it more difficult for ECOWAS member countries to fund the regional body, and some, like Nigeria, are pushing for the downsizing of the administrative structure of ECOWAS to reflect the current economic realities.
Nigeria has recorded more than 1,300 new cases of the coronavirus and 15 more deaths on Tuesday. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control says 917 patients had recovered and were discharged during the same 24-hour period. The new cases were confirmed in 25 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Lagos bore the brunt of the cases with 83 infections. Rivers recorded 72. Nigeria's total tally is now one case shy of 25,000. Death rate stands at 1,522. And Governor Samuel Ortom has tested positive for the coronavirus. The governor, who is asymptomatic, has started receiving COVID-19 treatment. Most of Ortom's close aides are said to have tested positive in the last few weeks. The governor has advised those who had been in contact with him in the last few days to submit for COVID-19 tests. He also stressed that they should also encourage those with whom they have come in contact to also seek the virus test to ensure their COVID-19 status. He also advised Benue residents to ensure compliance with COVID-19 measures, including wearing a face mask, use of sanitizers, regular hand washing, and physical and social distancing. Ortom also said people should not be afraid of going for COVID-19 tests, as that would help in curbing the spread of the virus. Coming up, African stories. Rwandan President Kagame lifts voice to world leaders to give voice to African vulnerable groups. And later, international news. Italian Prime Minister resigns as political crisis deepens.
You are watching a
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Rwandan President Paul Kagame has called on world leaders to give women and youth the most attention in their quest to help vulnerable groups in society, especially in the fight against COVID-19. Kagame was addressing participants at the virtual World Economic Forum, the Davos Agenda, on Monday.
Worked very well for largely...
The Rwandan head of state made the observation on Monday as leaders and other dignitaries from across the globe participated in the virtual Davos Agenda 2021 summit organized by the World Economic Forum that focused on measures to assist those most affected by the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The pandemic, as we have seen, has hit workers very hard, and governments have responded with the tools available. In Rwanda, for example, we have established the Economic Recovery Fund of around 100 million designed to help companies stay afloat. We also use the agriculture reserve to supply food to vulnerable families during lockdown and paid health insurance for 2 million citizens.
The latest youth unemployment figures were also highlighted as troublesome by participants.
I think that the youth unemployment is unacceptable high in Spain. Last available data show that 40% of all workers under 25 years old can't find a job. So since the pressing issue is at the center of my government agenda, we're ready to take decisive actions at this front.
In light of such challenges, a fresh approach to the problem of unemployment was also put forward as a promising way of tackling the problem.
We actually can have a new approach to job creation in various sectors, whether that's in education, in the care economy, in technology, as long as it is compatible with the planet and with a move towards a greener economy. Fourth, this new social contract can be based on new types of incentives from governments, but also build into it the creativity and innovation and capital of the private sector, as well as the deep involvement of the communities that are actually involved, the specific groups that need greater support from this new social contract.
Nothing can be achieved without the proper cooperation, however, in order to address existing social issues.
This crisis has revealed gaps in the existing social protection systems everywhere in the world. So, to your point, therefore, we've seen how the world has been affected, we have seen how the world has responded, and it has just brought to the surface the existing problems we have known before but not tackled. Otherwise, existing inequalities among countries will only grow wider, and the working conditions in the developing countries will degrade. An important point is the arbitrary distinction between formal and informal sector employment, particularly in the developing countries. Many earn their livelihood as small-scale entrepreneurs, especially women and young people. We need, therefore, innovative and comprehensive approaches to social protection that include workers of all backgrounds and types.
Close to 1.6 billion of the most vulnerable economy workers in global labor markets have lost their capacity to earn a decent living in the context of the pandemic, while the inadequacies of safety nets for the majority of the world's working population have been revealed. The virtual summit will continue until Friday.
Kenya's Rift Valley, home to Lake Bogoria, has been inundated by extreme flooding that is endangering humans and wildlife. The beautiful sight of flamingos and other animals in the area is being threatened by heavy flooding and has become worrisome for Baringo County authorities.
Lake Bogoria, located in Kenya's central Rift Valley, is one of the many affected by extreme flooding. The salty, alkaline lake is a unique habitat for the lesser flamingo, but its rising water level is threatening wildlife.
The increase of the water level is actually because of the result of the climate change. Like now in Kenya, we are experiencing like almost the full 3 rainfall pattern, which is unusual because we used to be having 2 rainfall pattern in a year. We've never seen. This is something new in this ecosystem. The lake has swelled beyond size, so we don't have a flamingo lookout points. Trying to land or trying to fly off to the lake, there is a lot of traps of flamingos by the trees.
Trapped flamingos are not the only victims. Businesses have been abandoned. This hotel's parking lot has turned into a playing ground for hippos and crocodiles.
I had to relocate my business premises uphill. Later on, the water levels rose up to my home. Before COVID was detected in Kenya, I was selling 500 liters of honey per day. That was the time we had plenty of visitors. Right now, we're almost doing 0 sales.
We used to have very good business, but the corona came and we laid off our staff. So we had 56 staff in place, but now we remain with 9. So later on June, when we are planning to bring back our staff to operation, the now rising water of Lake Baringo start. Almost entire lodge was submerged.
The past few weeks, though, have seen the water levels of Lake Baringo beginning to decline.
We are seeing positively, we are seeing that things will be good in the coming months, because if the water goes down, we will be able to get back our property and start renovating it and bring back our staff whom are laid off. And we are calling on the government, both national and the county government, to chip in or step in and assist us.
The government of Kenya has deployed experts to try and find out the cause of the drastic upswelling. But until then, land use changes, loss of wetlands, and urban growth have been cited as possible contributors to the extreme flooding.
When we return, international news. Italian Prime Minister resigns as political crisis deepens. And later, sport. Eyimba beats Adamawa United to stay third on the NPFL table.
You are watching ANN.
Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you'll need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, African News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has resigned amid the country's deepening political crisis and division among political parties over spending in the coronavirus crisis, which has claimed more than 85,000 Italian lives. Conte, a law professor who has headed coalition government since 2018, tendered his resignation to the president and is now discussing the political crisis with Senate President Elisabetta Casellati. President Mattarella is expected to spend at least 2 days in talks with party leaders on the next move. The centrist coalition government was plunged into crisis 2 weeks ago when former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi pulled his small Libera Italia Viva party out of it. He said his party would rejoin the coalition if Conte accepted a list of demands. Renzi says EU funds should be invested in promising sectors like digital and green technologies, and wants MPs rather than technocrats to decide on the allocations. But he also wants more investment in the country's embattled health service. He had governed Italy from 2014 to 2016. Conte survived a vote of confidence in the lower house, the Chamber of Deputies, last week. He then won a Senate vote, but not an absolute majority. Head of England's National Health Service, Sir Simon Stevens, says there is a possibility for a combination of the coronavirus and flu jabs in a single vaccine for future winters. Stevens told MPs on Tuesday COVID-19 could become a much more treatable disease in the next 6 to 18 months. He said the emergence of new coronavirus treatments in the second half of this year offers hope of a much more normal future. More than 6.5 million people in the UK have received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, with nearly 500,000 having had a second jab. The government says it plans to offer a coronavirus vaccine first dose to 15 million people by the middle of next month. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif says the country has approved and registered Russia's Sputnik V vaccine against its earlier plan to await World Health Organization's approval of Russia's vaccine. The country also says it will only rely on vaccines made by Russia, India, or China, while also working to produce a local shot. Earlier this month, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali, Iran's highest authority, banned the government from importing vaccines from the United States and United Kingdom, which he said without evidence were possibly seeking to spread the information or the infection rather to other countries. Twitter removed a post from his account that claimed vaccines from the US and UK were completely untrustworthy. A social media company said the post violated the platform's rules against misinformation. Russia has registered the vaccine in August last year and named it after the Soviet-era satellite. Sputnik V's developers have since said the vaccine is more than 90% effective. Several countries have begun administering it. U.S. President Joe Biden has increased the country's daily vaccination goal to 1.5 million. The president had announced last week that 1 million vaccines would be administered daily in the first 100 days of his presidency. But critics say that was too low because the U.S. had already nearly breached the target under the Trump administration. Biden announced Tuesday afternoon that it will increase by 15% the amount of coronavirus vaccines sent to each state next week as his administration orders for more doses with Pfizer and Moderna. The president says the U.S. has now ordered 600 million doses, enough to fully vaccinate 300 million Americans by the end of summer or early fall. But the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines require 2 doses taken weeks apart for full efficacy. Biden promised states will now have a 3-week reliable forecast of how much vaccine they will receive and a receptive ear at the White House to coordinate distribution efforts. The president also announced the federal government will reimburse governors who use their National Guard troops to assist with vaccines distribution in their states. Data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show New York has received nearly 2.5 million vaccine doses and has administered about 60% of them. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has announced the country's borders will remain closed for most of this year. Ardern says medical authorities may approve a COVID-19 vaccine as early as next week. The Prime Minister says for travel to restart, authorities would either have the assurance those vaccinated don't pass COVID-19 on to others, which is not yet known, or enough of the population needed to be vaccinated so people can safely re-enter the country. Ardern says apart from Australia, the rest of the world simply poses too great a danger to the country's health and economy to take the risk at this stage. The Prime Minister says the country's medicines regulator, MedSafe, was working towards granting provisional approval for the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine. The first doses of vaccines are due to arrive in New Zealand by the end of the first quarter. Up next, sport. Eyimba beats Adamawa United to stay third on the NPFL table. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sports, Eyimba have moved to the third position on the NPFL table after a 2-1 away win against the Adamawa United at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa Stadium in Bauchi. Eyimba are now on third spot in the NPFL with 12 points from 6 games. They host Katsina United in Aba on Sunday. Chess players in Nigeria say they are disappointed at the lack of commitment from the current board of the Nigeria Chess Federation ahead of nomination and election of new board members later in the year. International master Odion Ahija says the federation has been ineffective in the past 2 months. Ahija is calling for fresh national plan for chess in Nigeria. Another player, Augustine Akpemeye, accused the federation of not reaching out to the players. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.